parsha begins with a rather bizarre section in the Torah. The Torah talks about a man that goes out to war, part of the army, and he captures a woman in captivity. She's this beautiful woman. He brings her home, and he obviously wants to have a relationship with her. So obviously from a moral perspective, from an ethical perspective, it sounds like there's a lot of red flags. You know, he comes home with this beautiful woman. Does not sound to be kosher at the least. And we would expect the Torah should say that this is something that is prohibited and forbidden. And yet, we learn in this week's parsha that the Torah tells us that is not forbidden. The Torah doesn't say absolutely not, but rather take her into your home, wait 30 days, reevaluate the process, and she'll perhaps get homesick or not. And then at the end of this 30 days, you can go ahead and have that relationship with her. And we would obviously have to ask the obvious question, and that is, why doesn't God just say no? The Torah should say, no, this is something which is morally inappropriate. This is something which is ethically challenging. This is something which is not something that should be permitted at all. Why does we just not hear that one big fat no in this case? And we learn a very important thing, I think, not only in terms of this parsha, but just in general, applies to parenting, but in terms of self-discipline as well. Now, many times when we're dealing with a moral challenge, if we're just going to hear that big no in red lettering, underlined caps, it's not necessarily going to go ahead and do the job. But we have human temptation, and we have an inclination that may override that no. So we say, take a time out, cool off. Perhaps we're not going to say no right away. Rethink it, reevaluate it, and then perhaps you should make a decision at a later point. And that's a very invaluable advice in terms of parenting, in terms of education, and also in terms of our own self-discipline, to say, I'm never going to have a soda in my life. I'm never going to go ahead and have something which I should not have, is not something which is realistic. We have to go ahead, sometimes take a step back and learn how we can go ahead and analyze the whole situation and then come to a conclusion. Folks, we are dealing with moral challenges all day, and many times we know the right thing and the wrong thing to do. But sometimes it's hard to go ahead and just internalize that big no. Let us remember the lesson of this week's parsha, and always remember how to process these moral dilemmas. Have a wonderful Shabbos.